good to see you. We're going. I know the last one went a little bit over. We'll stay on schedule as best as we can. I'm Brad Crafton from Mississippi Mineral Resources Institute. Good to see some new people in here. I'll be talking today on dewatering and filtration. It's a big thing for biodiesel. Everybody knows and has dealt with it. It's even bigger for the SBO guys, but it matters a lot with us too. First of all, I want to echo what several people have said before, particularly Steve Bugate. You heard his talk earlier on waste vegetable oil filtration. Steve was mentioning about how if you are real diligent at keeping your oil free of water and particulate matter when it's put into the bins, when it's collected, things of that nature, helps quite a bit, because the easiest way to have easy dewatering and filtration is to not have much water and particulate matter. I mean, it's just efficiency at every turn that you can make is what you need to strive for. Basically, you need to heat oil to get the water out. There's other ways to do it. There's grease traps that are used for restaurant drains. Not quite effective on the small home brewer scale or even on co-op scale very much. One of the main things is you just got to heat to over 212 degrees Fahrenheit is the vaporization point of water. There are different centrifuges that can get you down completely free of water, but such as, well, I'm about to mention some brand names. I want to preface this, I sell nothing. I don't make any money from general public. Any products that I may mention by brand name, I am not affiliated with in the least at all. Any vendors, retailers of any sort, I've used their products and am happy with them and going to report that information to y'all. I work for a university, I sell nothing. All right? So, essentially, you collect waste oil. You've got oil that has some particulate matter and it's got some water. As stringent as you are in your collection, this is unavoidable. Water is leached out from the food, particularly in areas like where I live in Mississippi. It's absorbed from the ambient humidity through the hydroscopic properties of the oil itself. It just sucks it right up. So you have to get that out before you process it. One of the easiest ways is to just have some type of a crude filter screen for your collection. You go through, I've seen old blue jeans, t-shirts, window screens. McMaster Car will actually manufacture you a screen to your specification in micron, and I really like their stainless steel mesh screens. I use a 60 micron stainless steel mesh screen manufactured by McMaster Car. Put it on top of a barrel, secure it with a clamp, similar to what secures an open top barrel. As I pour the grease from cubies or pump it out from another repository, the particulate matter is caught by the screen. You can wipe it away and keep going with that. And on a small scale, as long as you're not too big and you've got a little bit of time, that works very nicely. Once you have it in a barrel, the best way to do it is to just heat it up. If you get the oil to above 212 degrees, vaporization point of water, the water starts to vaporize. Once I pour it through a screen, get it in a barrel, I put a pneumatic air-powered mixing arm. It's just very efficient. The air compressor's running in my shop all the time anyway.
How do you heat the barrel?
I heat the barrel through a drop-in heating element. And I've rigged it submersibly. An electrical engineer that works in my shop. I tried a few commercially purchased ones. Now I use a 220 water heating element modified with a thermocoupler. Just make sure that you don't boil your oil. You're going to create extra free fatty acids, because we all know the free fatty acids are created from heating this oil in the presence of water. What happens in the cooking.
What's our temperature to avoid then?
As low as possible. You just want
213 is what we want then?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, if you just drop in a bucket heater, or if you have water heater elements in there, I mean, you may not have the temperature control that you want. I mean, what is the oil boiling temperature?
It varies. Oil will start to boil. I mean, I spent a dozen years working behind a deep fryer. That's kind of how I got into this. It all depends on the water content and the particulate matter content in it, because that will change the dynamics of the oil itself. Generally, don't break 300. Yeah. I ramp up my agitating arm, create a nice vortex in a 55-gallon drum. You know, have about 30 gallons of oil in there. When I was running my apple seed, that was the size of my batch. I was running a 40-gallon water heater, 30-gallon batches of oil, 6 gallons of your salt and caustic blend, and a little airspace in there to get your agitation going. Worked quite nicely for me. That's one of the biggest things to get that water out. I'd run it for, you know, anywhere from 1 hour to 6 hours on the heating the oil and turning the mixing arm. That was necessary in my humid environment. If you happen to live in a place with low ambient humidity, or you're working in a shop with a wood heater, air conditioner, something like that where you have a low humidity content, there's a very nice nozzle, goes by the trade name of Dry Probe, D-R-Y-P-R-O. It's available quite reasonably at Utah Biodiesel Supply. Google it up and you can order it. There's all kind of other goodies there for you can get. They'll help things ease along the way.
I'm sorry. Trouble I'm having is trying to figure out a way to move oil so that it heats evenly.
Mm-hmm.
And you're using a paddle that's air driven?
Yes, I have. Okay, if you are looking at the barrel from the top view, you're looking down on this open top barrel. I have a frame set up with a air-powered mixing arm. I just like to stay away from electronics because you'll get a spark gap in there from the brushes of the electric motor. This doesn't have methanol in it. At this point, I just like to keep that thing out of my shop. All right? And if you were looking at the side of the barrel, we're assuming it's translucent. You have your arm here. You come down. It's got boat propeller looking things here. And I've run compressed air to it, and I've ramped that thing up like a vortex. I've got my heating element dropped in here. You want to make sure that there is no way through the moving of this oil that your drop-in element can become entangled into your arm. That could be disastrous. Safety at every turn is crucial here. I've seen some people that mount it inside the drum. They'll put it here and have the thermocoupler on the outside. I don't like doing that with these drums because they're cantankerous to weld. They're so thin. And I can make things stick together with a MIG welder, but I am no means a welder.
Where did you get your paddle that's air driven?
I found it. Went scavenging around the old machine shop at my university and just came upon it. It was used during an experiment creating an alternative to, I forget the actual chemical name, the coating they used to treat wood. And this was used in the handling of methanol specifically because that was the solvent used in that wood treatment. So that's why I like it. It's just very safe. Compressed air.
Go on eBay and the mixers and start them.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. And you kind of look at it. You need to run a test. Take a little 50 mil or shot glass of your oil, weigh it on a nice balance, microwave it, look at your differential. You get a feel about how much oil it is so you don't hit this thing with too much heat. We don't want to spin that power meter and burn more coal in the power plant than we have to, jack up your electric bill. Hit it with as much as you can, get it to a nice water-free content. Now, since we poured in through the filter screen, we got the rough particulate matter out. In my case, I think it's 60 micron. Then we've gotten the water out. Then you can go straight into your processor from here. What I like to do is set this up to where I don't need a pump to do this. Let gravity be your friend. Elevate this thing. You pump over into it once. You don't want to have to pump again into your processor. If you've got a pump, get gravity on your side with that. Then feed over into your apple seed and your act from there. The dry pearl, on the other hand, is very neat. If you've got low humidity, I go this route. It doesn't require heat, just a pump. All right. So you have your same barrel. You've got it inverted, the top cut out. You got your 3/4 inch bung right here on the bottom, and you've got your 2 inch. I always put a dump valve on the 2 inch to get the trub out every once in a while, swap the deck, so to speak. Come out of your 3/4, go into your basic Harbor Freight pump, the cheap little clear water job. Come up around the top. You have a little securing arm here. You have your dry probe nozzle here, and it sprays a nice mist. It's designed for spraying the top of this drum. And what it does is create a good deal of surface area there, and your dry air will take up the air.
We're actually doing the exact same thing. One of the questions I have about this design is that you mist out, and I can understand increasing surface area to get the water to blow off. One of the problems we're having is that our mist is so fine that we're misting fuel, and so fuel mist, it won't evaporate into the air per se, because fuel's not going to do that, but we have fuel mist that sort of is blowing around. I don't know how fine of a mist you would recommend for this.
Well, it's all in the angle of trajectory. What type of nozzle are you using?
We're using the
$6
shower head nozzle, and it's pretty high pressure from the Harbor Freight pump. We get pretty good pressure through the shower head, so it's misting a lot. As I put my hand next to the open top of the barrel, my hand in a few seconds will have a mist of fuel all over it. And so, some fraction of our fuel is just sort of blowing around the shop.
Oh yeah, ditch that and get you a dry probe. What this thing has is specific nozzle to where it's designed for the top of this drum and will angle down in there. And for a little bit of extra, I just have a nice little plastic trash can lid that I set on top of it to anything it doesn't get out into the shop. When I used to use some nozzles that I got from McMaster Car, made myself a nice little manifold with 3 nozzles. I was doing this. I had some of that problem, and that's why I needed the trash can lid. So since I went to the dry probe, it's not a big deal.
That's my question with the trash can lid then, is if you seal the thing, the idea here is to circulate air through to remove extra humidity from the fuel, right? I mean, if you seal the barrel up, how do you get the humidity out?
It's not sealed, it's just kind of laying on top of there. You don't want all of it. It's not the best way to do it. That's why I switched to the dry probe. And the spray pattern it puts out, you leave the barrel open completely and you get all that evaporation.
Great, we'll check that out. You said you cut biodiesel as a dry probe?
Yeah.
Great.
It's quite economical.
Sure.
Are you talking about with the second drawing, dewatering your fuel or dewatering your
Waste oil.
waste oil?
Waste oil.
Does it work with your fuel?
With the fuel,
Yeah.
I let it sit. I stay 3 batches ahead.
What if I don't want it? Would it work, you think? With
I don't know, great. Is it great out?
heating
Don't work
helps,
with it.
air helps.
Okay.
Yeah, you
So
can
put it
dry
in
it,
and
in dry weather, you can dry it as slow as
Well, it's dry, like 0 humidity.
So as long as it's not humid out.
Probably dry
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And in Mississippi, that's why I go with the heating. In the summertime, in the dead of winter, I'm running an electric heating element that dehumidifies my shop as well. I can go to the dry pro and save that heating element electricity.
Do you settle it out first before you do any of these other processes?
Oh yes, I'm very slow and patient in every step of the process. Stay ahead, have stages. The more slowly, carefully, and methodically you are with these processes, the less trouble you run into, the more time you have to think and analyze what does this oil that I'm dealing with, this particular batch need. Every batch will be different.
So you draw water off first before your thing is.
Yes. What I do is for my collection barrels, I'll have a standard barrel, and I come in and I plumb it with a little drain right here, and basically you got a good 6-8 inches there in the bottom, and I have it set up scotched on concrete blocks that I've cut out with a masonry saw bit. I come in and I put cubies or pickle buckets beneath this thing, and I drain out here. And allow your particulate matter and your water will be here, especially in Mississippi in the dead of summer if you time it a couple of days after they dump the grease. Yes.
Brad, how do you know when you're done or that it's completely dry and you got the water out?
You stop the process, you take your shot glass, get you a little sample, go back to the balance in the microwave. That's the
Quick, the microwave test?
yes. Or if you don't want to go that route, you can always go with the hot plate and the skillet. But I try to stay away from that as well. There's one here.
Yeah, I was curious if you would, I don't know if we decide to argue, would you mention more about the centrifuge method for drying? I don't know if
Yes.
that's-
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
What
And if
I
you know
do
any
to
brands
cut-
that are particularly good.
What I do to cut down on this first eraser. All right. This aside.
Brad,
Yes.
this will just take care of the free water. It will not take care of that water that's attached to the oil molecule, or will it take care of both of them also?
This will just take care of your free water and some of the other. You're not going to get down to 0 water with this. That's why I've gone to using a centrifuge, and that's what I was about to explain now as a polishing process once I get done with this.
But a centrifuge won't get rid of the attached water. I mean, if I understand correctly, maybe I'm wrong, but everyone that I've talked to, it says that a centrifuge will take care of the free water that's in there, but the molecules that are attached to the oil that still can be there won't get rid of it.
Correct, because what we're doing here is a physical change, not a chemical change. What we're trying to do is get to as little water as possible.
So we're just dealing with the free water.
Yes.
Okay.
This is dewatering, not water elimination. I wish we could eliminate all of it. That would make things easy on us a lot. But we have to look at cost effectiveness. There's industrial ways to doing this. For instance, flashing. There's different ways that industry would handle this. Graham Lanning actually has a nice little setup on his website. And if you go just Google up Graham Lanning, he will show you. He's got a nice little heating element he mounts to the barrel. It's got a cavity here, and you get the oil to flow through there, and it's got the heating element housed in here, and it's more efficient, works better. It's not quite as crude as the way I do it. I plan on building one of these for
You're just heating part of the oil at a time, that's the idea?
yes. It's a lot safer.
How's that spelled? Graham?
Let me
UtahBiodiesel.com.
Yeah, go to Utah Biodiesel. You can get a lot of these things that I'm mentioning. A lot of good stuff on there. Where was I? Oh, Dieselcraft centrifuge. This is what I've gone to using now. Instead of trying to hit it with this and use a hammer to swat my flies, I'll get the bulk of the water out of this, get down to a reasonable amount of free water to where I can handle through centrifuges you can get from dieselproducts.com. Is the was it Filtration, I believe is the trade name they call for it. And I mount it same way with the dry probe. I get a barrel, come out of the 3/4 bung, go into a pump here, and then out of the pump you have to have at least 70 psi because these centrifuges work on hydrostatic pressure of opposing jets. You go into your Dieselcraft centrifuge and you come out of there and you go back to the top. This thing, the one I use is the model 60 FE, I believe. It's rated at 2 gallons per minute. 4 passes does good on this, so I put 50 gallons of oil in my barrel and I run through here at between 70 and 120 psi. That's the operating range of this particular centrifuge that I use, and I run it for 100 minutes. It's all passed through just about 4 times, and it gets you down to 1/10 of a micron and pretty dang near water free.
Ballpark the price on that thing?
$200.
Okay.
What kind of CFM from your compressor is it using? Do you know?
Oh, it's quite large. I have a regulator on it, and I take it down to between 35 and 40.
Okay.
You mean on the compressed air drive here?
No, you said that the centrifuge runs on compressed air.
No. The centrifuge runs on the pressure of the oil coming out of the pump,
Okay.
hydrostatic opposing jets.
Okay.
Between 70 and 120 psi is operating
Then you
range.
can drive it on the Harbor Freight pump?
Yeah.
That'll develop enough pressure? That little Harbor Freight pump?
Yeah, it works good for me.
Which one are you using?
Which Harbor Freight pump?
I can't remember the specifics.
$40
I
is
just,
the cheap one, right?
yeah, I just called them on the telephone. I said I need one between 70 and 120.
Blue, clear.
Cast iron head?
Yeah.
You actually loop past their head and run your centrifuge?
Oh, this thing is real weak. What this thing was designed for is to go on the oil system of a bulldozer in Canada. So it's made to operate on the pressure coming off the oil pump.
So that's not one of the C50 centrifuges, is a different centrifuge you're talking about? Centrifuge I bought, you have to run it on a bigger Dieselcraft one.
You talking about OS50?
Yeah, an OS50.
Yours requires 90 psi and like 7 GPM.
Yeah.
If you go to Granger, Granger will spec you a motor and a pump to what you need for your centrifuge. And it's you don't need the bypass business that if you buy these Dieselcraft kits, as I understand it, I use spinner 2 centrifuges, and we use their huge industrial centrifuge. But you know, if you ever look at the YouTube video of this, there's always a bypass. So there's a potential with a Dieselcraft that you're never actually centrifuging all the oil because you're bypassing. Because the pumps that I've seen them come with, the kits, they don't spec the pump necessarily to the centrifuge to allow you to just full on shut the bypass. So if you go to Granger, Granger will spec to what you all are required via whatever centrifuge you purchase. So if you need 24, or if you need 70 or 80 or 100 psi at 16 GPM, they will set you up with a pump, motor, and the pulley system that you'll need to run your oil full throttle through the centrifuge. That's what we've done, and it works. It's great. You turn it on, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. The Granger's great stuff too. Better than Harbor Freight, and you don't have to have a MasterCard account.
The way you have that drawn with the centrifuge below the drum, are you actually pumping from the centrifuge back up to the top of the drum?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay. Let me get this perfect to scale. This is more just a flow thing. What I'll do is, again, I have it set up on concrete masonry blocks. I come out and the pump's more sitting here, centrifuge is sitting here, and I go directly over into it, such as that. It's whatever you can do to keep brine. It all has to do with your pump.
Because I run a centrifuge, just a little guy, and if I filled it, I just have it sitting on the top of the bung hole. And since when the oil expands a few times, I put it in, it's run fine, but when the oil heats up and expands to the bottom of the orifice of the drain of the centrifuge, it fills up and it prevents it from spinning. Never had that issue?
Well, I also, run it for just 100 minutes or so, and I guess since got it down to enough of a particulate matter, and as long as your pump stays dry and bushy, I didn't have that trouble.
So I think if the bowl inside fills up, it doesn't drain properly, when you have all the resistance of the fluid on the outside of the bowl, that the jets can't, because there's supposed to be air between the actual contamination bowl and the bell housing or whatever.
Yeah, well, maybe mine's not running completely the whole time. I'm not getting as much of efficiency out of it. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that I was actually sitting there when it actually happened. I heard it spin down, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. It was because the fluid reached the bottom of my drain back in.
Yeah, I mean, that may be happening with me too. I tend to put things in motion and go to the other part of the shop. Since I run, single thing by myself, I have to check that out. It may be happening to me too, and I don't even realize it.
Just hang your centrifuge up on the edge of the barrel so it drains straight to your barrel.
Yeah, okay.
That's all you do.
That's a great tip. I might not be getting the efficiency out of it.
And you have to exhaust it, unless you have an air or a method by which you can exhaust physically the oil from the centrifuge. You have to basically let it drain, just gravity drain.
It has to be like above the.
Yeah, as soon as you start to want to constrict that, you have to have a method by which you're moving the oil away from the centrifuge.
Yeah, because this past week, I was like, what happened? I realized.
Yeah, so maybe you just need to try to let it just gravity drain straight into the drums. If you're trying to run it through a hose, if you don't have the ability to exhaust it as quickly as it needs to exhaust it, it'll bind the centrifuge up.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out, watch it more carefully. Yeah, but that's pretty much what we got going on. I've got another self-cleaning filter that I'm working on now that is not really necessary for my scale, but basically I found this machine out at my shop in one of the containers. The institute I work for has had many of these research programs. It was designed for filtering chicken litter and waste, and designed by a Russian gentleman in 1985. And I'm currently putting in, retrofitting and trying to get the boundary layer set up with it for waste vegetable oil. I haven't got it to work good enough yet, but I feel that by next year I'll be able to present real educatedly on this. I just want to show it to you. This is something that's very nice, but I could never patent it, and because the man who invented it died in 1988. So I'll give you a rough outline here, and maybe it's something that some of y'all would like to build yourself and just check it out. Essentially, we got a housing. It's 18, 20 inches in diameter, tube that's cut with a flange right here that you can bolt together. Put a filter screen right here in the middle, and I just ordered another filter screen set from McMaster Car, going 60 micron again. We'll see if that works. I was trying it with the 20 and it was not working properly for me. Got a diaphragm here, rubber diaphragm, real thick, good diaphragm. You want something that's resilient. And it's got a piston on it here that gets this diaphragm in an up and down motion and sets up a resonant frequency. This is my boss, who recently passed away as well, called this the supersonic resonance self-cleaning filter screen. Kind of a tongue twister. But essentially, this thing's got different hats you can put on for feeding different kinds of chicken litter in it. I'm just feeding it in manually in buckets and filling it up. That's not working too good for me. I got to design a top for this thing that actually can create a flow. Put your waste vegetable oil in here. It's got a port coming out from right here down into a Trub container that also has an outpour, and you can fix it to whatever repository you want. You set up a boundary layer with this up-down motion of the diaphragm, and in essence, what they were able to achieve back in the late 80s with chicken litter with this thing was that you put in any material, heavy particulate matter, we're talking about chicken litter here, and you've got your outpour here, and there's one here. They have for various purposes. I haven't decided which one I like better. Well, I'm sorry, not right there. It's here. Anyway, with that resonant frequency of the diaphragm, what you would try to achieve is about a 1.5 millimeter boundary layer above this screen, so it never gets clogged with particulate matter, and this Trub just falls off down here, and you got a repository to clean it. And in effect, you could pull up with a tank of however many gallons of waste vegetable oil you can, and run through this thing, and your filter screen will never clog. You'll have your Trub going out here, goes through the your waste vegetable oil goes through the filter screen, out your port, and you got clean waste vegetable oil. This would be great for a co-op. Like I said, at my university level, my small production, It's not really necessary, but I just kind of wanted to share it with all of you because if you're trying to get a big setup going, you're filtering lots of WVO, this thing will be very advantageous. Like I said, I got some engineering issues, mainly coming up with the proper resonant frequency to get that diaphragm going at the RPMs of the motor to create that boundary layer there. You want somewhere between 1 millimeter and 2 millimeters is what they observed with the chicken litter. So I'm figuring it's going to be somewhere thereabouts for waste vegetable oil as well. But I think this thing will be real handy for a community scale co-op to be able to do high flow waste vegetable oil filtration. Hopefully next year, if good enough to get invited back and conference is still going on, I'll have some information to report on this and let you know how well it worked out for me. Anybody else got anything before I turn it over to the next gentleman presenting?
How are you doing your primary filtering right now, using 60 micron, you say?
Yes, sir.
What is your physical setup?
My physical setup is I have an open top drum that has the band on it to hold the top. And what I did was I kind of made myself a little aluminum band armature to keep from breaking the filter string. I just clamp it down and I pour the stuff through straight out of the cubies because I collect most of my grease from cubies.
For your centrifuge dewatering.
Yes, sir.
You've just done heat wave to prove that you're getting rid of water.
Yes. And like I said, as this gentleman mentioned, there's still some water there. I'm not getting rid of all of it, but I'm getting it down pretty darn close.
Where's the centrifuge come from? Where do you get it?
Dieselproducts.com is where I got mine. There are many nice companies that have various models that you can choose from. They're all quite similar to Mid-to-Go for crankcase oil.
With your heating method, what kind of water do you find in your fuel average sometimes?
Well, you mean what?
Well, I mean, when you measure before and after, what kind of difference do you find in the before and after measurements for how much water you're getting?
Significant amounts. If I can get down to that second layer beyond the decimal point of water difference, I'm quite lucky.
Okay.
Brad? An email address?
Yes, brad.crafton@gmail. I also got some business cards from the university, got my contact number there and stuff, if anybody interested in that.
They asked if to write it on the board.
Yeah, yeah. Can you read this in the back? Mm-hmm. All right.
Hey, Brad.
Yes.
When you run the oil through the centrifuge and you get the water pretty low and you get it down to, you said, some micron, 1 micron, or?
Yes. Particulate matter is down to 10.
Now that's then ready for the biodiesel process, or is that just able to use also as STO?
Oh yeah, I go straight into my BioPro then.
In BioPro?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you finding since you're pre-filtering at 60 microns, the 100-minute total pass time, are you ever finding that in the middle of that process you're having to stop and clean out your centrifuge for sludge or free water that's bound up in there, or are you able to basically get a complete 55-gallon batch done without having to open up your centrifuge and clean out sludge?
I run it pretty much leave the thing kind of unattended, so yeah, and it doesn't fill up completely. I ordered an extra little filter bowl, but I haven't had to use it thus far. I'm pretty picky about my oil. Down south, I got a lot of choices. I need to turn it over to this gentleman here. One more question. Yeah.
Are you blogging this, or is there anything online to see what you're working on in the shop?
No, no, I don't use computers that much. I'll report back more next year.